Okay, hello, welcome to the 339th meeting of the New York Comics and Picture Story Symposium. This is a meeting that originally took place at Unnameable Books in Brooklyn on September 20th with our guest, Inés Estrada. The Q&A portion of that talk, it was a live event. The Q&A portion was recorded, but Inés's presentation was not recorded. So Inés was gracious enough to allow us to re-record it for the YouTube channel and the YouTube audience. One of the nice things about the symposium is that we invite cartoonists and people who think about comics to speak, and the symposium is truly free form. While a lot of people will choose to speak about a new book or a new something new that they've published that they want to promote, people are really encouraged to talk about any subject they choose, even if it's outside of their art or outside of comics. We were really, Inés personally is one of my favorite cartoonists of, I think one of the best storytellers of her generation. So I would have been thrilled for her to talk about her newest, newest published work, or just her history, a retrospective of her cartooning in general. But we were really lucky for her to present an essay about comics in zine form called Cartoon Spirituality, that touches on a lot of issues that her art touches on, but in a different form. And it was a beautiful presentation, and we're very grateful for Inés to re-record with us. So without, let me just read a quick bio of Inés, and then we will kick things over to her. Inés Estrada is a cartoonist from Mexico City, where she currently resides. She has been self-publishing her comics since 2006, and has also been published in Sweden, Spain, and the United States. Her last book, Alienation, a sci-fi horror graphic novel about a future in which reality and the virtual are indistinguishable, came out in 2019 from Fantagraphics and is currently sold out. Her other works include Cherry, Lapsos, and Impatience. So without further ado, let me kick things over to Inés.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here online for this. So as Austin said, this was originally a live reading that I did on Unnameable Books in Brooklyn, but because chaos is around us all the time, we didn't record it, but we're doing it again for you. So welcome, let's start. So cartoon spirituality. 20,000 years ago, the first cartoons were drawn. Prehistoric people scribbled inside the surfaces of caves and scrawled on stones. These were the first graphic representations made by humans, and they're still around for us to see. Today, I will call them cartoons because on a very basic level, that's what they are. They're stylized drawings. Even if they're not totally realistic, they're clearly depicting wild animals, the likes of which shared a specific reality in time and space with our ancestors. Some humans appear in the scenes too, but they feel almost insignificant. They're small and faceless, merely some sticks with a dot for a head. Sometimes they're armed with weapons, but even then they look quite vulnerable compared to the animals that surround them. The true meanings and intentions of these depictions have been lost forever to time, but we call them art because we don't know better. Humans throughout time have taken that which they don't understand and called it by names more familiar to them. To impose these ideological concepts of today into the mysteries of yesterday is a sort of chronological colonization that we do. It's an easy way to make the past more familiar and less incomprehensible. I have decided to impose my concept of cartoons into cave paintings and petroglyphs, and going forward in time, into anything that is a graphical representation of anything figurative. A drawing, to me, can be any kind of stroke on a surface, while a cartoon is decidedly not abstract. It is instead an abstraction of something. Prehistoric cartoons definitely served a purpose, or maybe more than one, but the only one I can assure for certain is that they were made for contemplation, to be seen, partly at least, by humans. Beyond that, it's all suppositions and projections from our perspective in this current time and place. So what I want to define as cartoons is that they are always a representation, and they're not abstract. They can be symbolic, but they're not undefinable. They will always represent something. Drawing is the original form of visual expression. Before the written word, there were drawings. And that's why I consider writing to be a form of drawing. In some languages, it is even more so, as they use ideograms to express concepts and symbols that communicate concepts, not just phonetic signs like the letters of the English alphabet. There's another branch of human culture that developed from drawing, which is what we now call art. Although to determine exactly what is art feels like another millenary mystery to me, since everyone seems to have their own definition for it. For the purpose of this essay, I'm going to disregard that concept completely. It's too loaded with elitism to serve what I want to communicate here. The thing about drawing, be it art, writing, or cartoons, is that it has a transcendental power to absorb us into contemplation, transport us to another reality, or show us another perspective of this one. Here's where graphic expression lures into the realm of magic. To draw is to invoke an idea and manifest it into this reality. And in this way, reality can be transformed and created. Makes sense to me since magic partly evolved into what we now call science. Magic is an artifice, an amalgamation of human techniques for understanding and controlling reality. It can be done through the manipulation of supernatural forces. And what are those, if not just real entities around us that we have not understood in human terms yet? Everyday commodities like electricity or the internet would have been considered magic just a few hundred years ago. We call the unexplainable magic, but true magic depends on structured processes, much like today's science. What is actually unexplainable is our reality, and magic helps us grapple with it. Drawing can also be understood as a magic technique to manipulate reality. On the surface, it transforms the visual appearance of whatever you're drawing, but on a deeper level, it can also influence and move others in more conscious and unconscious way. To draw is to manifest an image, and with it, you invoke an idea, a multidimensional concept embedded on a graphic symbol. Even just a simple representation of an animal, like the ones in cave paintings, can take a life of its own in our mind and become an egregore, a powerful spiritual entity. This is what I think cartoons are. Some of the first cults and religions in this world were centered around animal worship. Animals are similar to us. They are alive and they are conscious, but in their own particular way that is unlike what we experience as life and consciousness. This difference in their abilities, their perception, and their approach to life is what awes and fascinates us, or can sometimes repulse us as well. Animal cults mostly developed out of the admiration of these differences and particularities, and we began to associate animals with superior beings, either as their companions or their representatives on Earth. In ancient Egypt, drawings of anthropomorphic gods can be found on countless walls and artifacts, all of them drawn with such a beautiful stylization that makes me consider them sacred cartoons. They're figurative, but they're intentionally not made to be perfectly realistic. Egyptians drew the proportions of their characters relative to the importance to each other, and disregard the mechanics of human perspective. Kings are bigger than slaves, and gods are bigger than kings. Cartoons are just realistic enough so we can understand what they attempt to represent. But beyond that, the rules of the world can bend as infinitely as the dancing limbs of Betty Boop. As cartoons, magic and the sacred have been so intimately entwined since their origins, it is only natural that in our current era, industrially made cartoons have now become holy to many of us living in this capitalist society. The cartoons of today are similar to the cave paintings of our ancestors because most of them have also been created collectively, so much that most of their creators become almost irrelevant and in some cases even anonymous. Most of them are owned by corporations, which to me are also like magical entities since we made them all up. And that's why their creators often end up becoming more of a brand name than an actual person who's drawing every iteration of the character. And as the character is created by more and more people, it starts to become an egregore, something that transcends the imagination of an individual to become a being in its own right, the idol of a new faith. And depending on the kind of devotion it provokes in its fans, it could also morph into an infectious ideological parasite. Recently on Twitter, the following post went viral. Disney plays a sacred role in our society. It is tasked with transmitting the values of fairy tales, both old and new, to generations. This is a holy task. Fairy tales are not trifles. They are symbolic myths, representations of the collective consciousness of our culture. Many mock this statement, but in spite of the hyperbolic way it is written, it reflects the mental state that a portion of humanity currently lives in. These people see corporations like their sacred institutions, in the same way others, or maybe some of them too, also see religion. Disney, like Hollywood, is so powerful, and the media they create and distribute is so pervasive that it certainly has an effect of indoctrination on a big part of our population. Because of that, I don't think we should be pleading to them to have mercy on us, as if these cultural overlords cared for us in any way other than as their consumer serfs. Instead, we should be looking at ourselves, questioning how all the media we've absorbed throughout our lives has shaped and informed our thought patterns and life structures, to consider which kinds of it we consciously want to let influence us, and in what capacity. Why not, instead of accepting the ideological reality they're create our own? The power of the fan lies in that, to take an already existing character or a fictional world and create our own narrative and meaning for it. The cult of cartoon-like characters can be traced back to prehistory, and something else that these holographic figures share with our modern-day cartoons is that there's something about them that transcends both the human and the earthly. Jesus Christ probably existed as a real person once, but he transcended his humanity to become an icon. And in that way, I consider him to be, if not the first, then at least the best known transhuman in current history. Like a cartoon, his character maintains a symbolic essence, but his appearance is mutable. He can be found around the world depicted as a man of many races. And in this way, his humanity became as boundless as his message. To adore a god or a saint is an act of faith. As humans, we need to find meaning in life and ways to make sense of reality. To believe in something fulfills the spiritual need. Currently, we're living in the dark era of the virtual. Social media is a fucked up way to quantify reality. Through it, your worth and relevance can be correlated to numbers. Does it matter? Yes, no. Everyone's forced into a subtle state of psychosis now, as we accept this parallel reality as inseparable to ours, but also as its own independent dimension. The internet may provide us with ways to become more connected, but because of how it's designed, it mostly just makes us feel more alienated and self-conscious. Add to that the pandemic, climate change, economic instability, politics becoming polarized. Everything is losing its nuance and becoming flattened into opposing extremes of that duality. The eternal battle of good versus evil is morphing into the real versus the unreal. Through can constantly and immediately know about everything happening that's everywhere, including the thoughts of billions of people, some of whom we love, many we simply know of, and most of whom are complete strangers with whom we just happen to share a planet. Our minds and souls have no capacity to truly consider each of the almost 8 billion humans as individuals who are just as complex as us. To be made aware of it all can feel overwhelming. It's true psychic warfare. What we consider real and our spirituality are the most vulnerable fronts in the current culture war. To adore a cartoon is an act of faith. To believe that in some way, somehow, there is a transcendental truth within its fiction. Fans adore characters for many reasons. In their favorite characters, they can see themselves, or their ideal self or partner, or the fascination can come from more mysterious depths. Perhaps there isn't a clearly articulable reason for why this character has become so present in their lives, but something about it resonates in a way that connection feels unique and unbreakable. A spiritual bond is formed, not with another human, nor with a mythical being, but with a supernatural entity, acknowledged as a decidedly human creation, but still in a sort of anonymous way, as it's often more tied to a brand than a specific artist. Capitalism is the reality within which this entity has taken form and through which it propagates. Its holy texts are immediate properties, and its followers' communion rituals. Consuming is mostly the most important. But its ideological power still depends on the public, especially on its devotees. Fans give and transform the power of the cartoon. Pepe the Frog, who first appeared in the 2000s as part of a gang of stoner freaks in Matt Fury's comics, transformed through the meme magic of anons and internet trolls into a designated hate symbol in the US in the late 10s, a sigil invoked and personified. At the same time, he also became a political mascot for a very different cause in Hong Kong, where he represented protesters opposing the authority of mainland China. As an individual of this era, I am also a fan, and I even have a few cartoon characters tattooed on me. One of them is this Gabumon that I made on myself. It's a character from Digimon, an animated series that I watched when I was about 10 years old, and which I still remember moved me deeply, although I don't know how I would feel about it now, since I'm not devoted enough to watch it again as an adult. 20 years later, just the memory of it brings me enough comfort and entertainment. I like to think that because Digimons are digital monsters, their reality isn't completely an impossible fiction. They could exist in virtual reality, and in the series, they're out there hanging out, doing their thing. They can feel, think, and talk. Each has a distinct personality, and I also think they look cool. The original Digimon 1 and 2 series follow one story. There's many characters, both human and digital, and it's sort of an epic adventure with love and friendship obliterating evil in the end. Then there's Digimon 3, which starts a new story by Chiaki Konaka. In it, the characters have grown up as fans of the original Digimon series, and they play the card games and avidly consume everything else in the franchise. One of them even creates their own Digimon by drawing it, and then it becomes real. And it turns out Digimons actually exist in virtual reality, and they can reach over to ours too. The dream of a fan comes true. Konaka also wrote the anime Serial Experiments Lane. This series is about teenagers and virtual reality too, but the world it depicts is darker. The Wired is more sinister and reminds me more of Videodrome than the Digiworld. Instead of being populated by friendly monsters, it's a deep web of human monstrosity, foreshadowing in 1998 some of the worst aspects of today's internet, including the power of nefarious trolls and influencers, psychic vampires who construct an illusory self online that feeds on the attentions of others. Narcissists and psychopaths create and propagate ideological parasites that suck on the energy of others. You can find this kind of characters among the rich, since wealth makes material possessions worthless for them. What they crave the most is power. And an easy way to make yourself powerful is by being present in other people's minds. Cartoon characters have a visual appeal that facilitates them in becoming parasitic ideological entities. A fan can become enslaved by his idol. Like an addict, he surrenders his life completely to a figure that to others is nothing more than a fiction. This phenomenon reflects the alienation our society has forced on us, has forced to experience. For some, it can be so heavy that they retreat completely into their own fantasies. They would rather procure their bond with a made-up character than maintain a relationship with other humans. I don't blame them for preferring their imagination over reality, but I wonder how fulfilling their lives are for them as individuals. Capitalism inflicts a particular kind of trauma on us that damages something precious and essential to the human experience, our capacity to form intimate relationships with others. In the beginning, humans drew animals, living beings with whom they shared our reality. Then came the supernatural, the gods, the saints, the demons, the ghosts, the aliens, beings that are sometimes like us or like the animals we know, but who are also something more than that, more powerful and confounding. Most of humanity kept developing a spirituality that could be represented through characters and figures. But in Islam, sentient beings are absent from the graphic expressions of its followers. Their visual representation of God is so abstracted that is found in complex geometric patterns and intricate calligraphic pieces. Just like drawings, each is unique. Also because in Arabic, there are 99 holy names with which to call God. The devotees of other Abrahamic religions seem to envision a more humanized version of God, which enables such a complex entity to become more approachable. But I personally believe that we should also expand our understanding of God beyond the human. For me, God is pure consciousness. If beings like beasts, who some consider inferior, experience a kind of consciousness that we cannot even imagine, but being capable of flying and seeing in infrared, how can we pretend to impose the limits of a human mind and form on a being as infinite and superior as God? Postmodernity has brought humanity to experience a new kind of spiritual complexity. Now we have the virtual, fictional characters, media properties, memes, egregores, entities we acknowledge to be made up, but yet we revere them as if they had some kind of power over us. And they do, because by thinking of them, we give them power. Capitalism feeds off of our never-ending desires, but material wealth is not only unfulfilling past a certain point, it's also limited by the fact that resources are finite. Our consciousness is the only thing that we can constantly expand on and never get to reach its limit. Within this rotten structure, we have the power to create our own reality. What kind of ideological entities and spiritual beings deserve your energy? How can you define the form and the extent of their presence in your reality? I would love for Gabumon to be real and hang out with me. He's cute and a mix of two of my favorite animal kinds, furry and dinosaur. He's also a bit weird and shy, but above all, a sweet and unconditional friend. But if he existed in virtual reality as the series suggests, he would be a product of artificial intelligence. AI can process information at an astounding speed, and it can already surpass our capacity for that in specific areas. But there is not yet any kind of artificial consciousness. AI has no awareness. It does not feel, does not have any desires, nor any kind of social or self-constructed identity narrative. They do not have an intuition, and they cannot make associations of unrelated things unless they do it at random. The human mind functions in a very different way, and is instead terrible at randomness. This can be proven simply by the fact that the most secure passwords are generated by AI. Passwords conformed of random letters and numbers are the hardest to decipher for both humans and other AI. Instead, human-created passwords always contain words or numbers in a particular order, not only because that makes it easier for us to remember them, but also because it's very hard for us to come up with anything that isn't meaningful to us in some way or related to something that is. Meaning is necessary for our existence. A mind without a meaningful structure is not random. It is chaotic, just like the world we live in. Every structure of reality has a pattern. We are just too limited by our human perception to be able to observe and understand them all. There are many magic techniques we can study and practice to contemplate our reality and manifest new ones into it. Drawing is just one of them. Let us expand our consciousness and create new meanings and new structures for our reality, less dependent on the fake promises of unattainable material comfort and never-ending consumption, for our joy to be found in imagination and involvement. Or not, I'm not anyone to tell you what to believe in. Take whatever you like from this and make it your own. And maybe I'll become your fan one day.
Thank you so much, Inez. That was beautiful, and it was so nice to be able to hear again. For those of you guys watching this on YouTube, which is everyone watching it, the audience Q&A that Inez did after giving this presentation in person at Unnameable Books on September 20th. The audience Q&A is going to be uploaded right alongside this video. I'm going to have a link to that video in the description of this one. So if you want to hear Inez in person discussing these ideas and issues with people in person and also people who ask questions online, just click over to that in our videos, or just click on the link that will be provided here. And thank you so much, Inez, for doing this a second time and for presenting these ideas to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for hearing me read my zine. If you would like to have a physical copy, you can get them at my online shop, that is gatosaurio.com, GATOSAURIO.com, or with Austin himself at Domino Books. Yeah, thank you. Hope you enjoyed and this made you, I don't know, think something interesting.
Thank you, Inez.